So I just did a long and I hope entertaining video, at least to me, it interested me, about face theory. And I sort of wanted to look at the position I ended up looking at there a few different ways and just say what different ways of thinking could lead you to different and all very reasonable moves. All the moves we're going to look at, or virtually all the moves we're going to look at today in response to this starter, are pretty good. And, part of the reason for that is red's hand is bad. And that means there are lots of ways that blue can go about attacking it and having them make sense. But I think it's an interesting position for us to explore and think about what I'm intending to be four ways of describing this, though I may have forgotten them by the time we're there. I have no notes. There's nothing to keep me on track here. So the first one is face theory. And the core conceit of face theory is that advantages and disadvantages are about having more faces of your cards. Each card has a number of faces facing out towards squares that might interact with it. For instance, the card on the board has a 1 and a 7 facing out. And it's about making sure you can attack each face of their card and making it hard for them to attack each face of yours. So face theory doesn't see like the point of playing, a move in a distant side, right? A move like this has no appeal to face theory. Why would you want three out facing sides? It's so hard to have, you know, you want to minimize the number of sides they can take easily. That's never going to do so. And so face theory is going to focus on moves with two sides facing out. And we came up with five moves here that a face theory player might play quite reasonably. Delial played here. Note the opponent cannot take from six. We can recapture in six. We still have their starter covered, and now we have created difficulties for them. This move as well is very similar, also approved by face theory. This move is the move we ended up exploring a little more deeply and playing out a game as a face theory player might play it out. And what else did we have? This move wasn't so good, but that is also a face theory approved move. And two sides facing out doesn't mean you can't go in sides, right? A move like this still only has two sides facing out, and our opponent can't take this from three, and we can recapture from three if needed. So those were the five moves like a face theory style player might play. And I would describe this as you're trying to keep everything under control. No card has too many access points to it. You're looking to lock in cards when you can. And you're really looking to both maximize the number of things they can't take or have trouble taking, and minimize the number of things you have trouble taking. So, for instance, when we looked at this move, the follow up we said was okay, a move that makes a lot of sense for if the red player is also thinking a similar way, would be something like this, saying, okay, I don't have six. I know how to attack a corner. You attack a corner by setting up so that you do have ways to capture it. This sets up 4-4-6-5 to be able to play in six. And then we played out the game, and you can check out that video if you wanna hear that talked through. But that's face theory in a nutshell. There's more details. In the first video, I kind of showed the math of it. In the second video, I tried to show the sort of practical application of it. And in the third video, I'm kind of describing it stylistically. And I think it's a style. It makes sense. I've been coming up with this idea as it's a style not all that distinct from my own, right? We limit the points of contact, right? We're playing cards that at most of the time have two sides out facing. We're excited to play when there's one side out facing. In that sample game, the game continued, here, grabbing safety with one side out facing, right? Really trying to make sure you present as little for the opponent to attack as possible and those cards as safe as possible. And that might sound quite simple. I think there was a bunch more going on there. All of these things have a bunch to explore. But yeah. And then, of course, the main squares for a red to play in now are 2 and 8. Face theory agrees. Yeah. So I quite like face theory, but I wanted to think about what are other ways we might address this position. What are other kind of stylistically emblematic moves one might make? And I think the first one that came to mind is combo focused play. Combo focused play prioritizes setting up synergies on the board such that you have combo potential. So, combo focused play, I think the main signpost of it is regularly looking to play diagonally to prior action, right? There's all these lines you see. Is there a good example here? This will take me a sec to see, but something like say blue went here, right? The combo focus player immediately thinks, what if I go here and set up that big plus and 5? Sure, you get 3, you can have your safe square. I get the plus and 5, I combo back. Now here blue is captures in 4, but pretend blue didn't have any way to capture in 4. And blue takes the safe square, and red plays here, and suddenly the combo is paid off. Again, pretend blue has nothing in 4. We've just flipped a whole bunch of cards that are locked in. We set up big combo chains, and it paid off, right? And so I think the combo focus player, and that doesn't mean every move they make will be like this, but the face player has no interest in playing in 5, right? Why would I play a card that can be accessed so many different ways when I can play in one of 3 beautiful corners where my card can only be accessed 2 ways? But the combo player says, oh, 5 is diagonal to the most things. 5 is the most interactable square. I want interaction. I want my cards to be accessible. I want all the cards to be accessible multiple ways. So I think in this position, this is very much the move that jumps out. It sets up a plus in 2 with 6, 7, 1, 3 that you might not have noticed, but is kind of nice to have. It sets up a plus wall in 8 with 6, 7, 1, 3. Sure, 6 is dead to us, but 6 is dead to them too. We can pay attention to that if we're a combo player. When we play in 5, I think some of the players who have better feel for these moves note how much it kills squares for the opponent, as well as how much it creates squares for ourselves. And we have 2 different pluses in 4 with 6, 7, 1, 3 and 3, 4, 7, 5. Right? We already could take their starter, but we're not just trying to take things. We're no face theorists anymore. We're not just making sure we have a capture. We are trying to have combo potential, right? If they go in 4 or 6 ever, we're going to have combos in 2, 4, and 8. We're going to have potential to build chains. We're going to be able to play off this card, right? This card says, I think I have better play and a lot of combo squares, and you don't. And I think that's a very appealing way of playing. And I think if we look at this position and think, if we switch sides, right, and went to the red player's perspective, how might the combo playing player reply? Well, a move that pops out immediately to me is this, again playing on the diagonal and setting up 4, 4, 6, 5 to have pluses in both 6 and 8, right? And it's again maximizing squares where I have something I can do. And note the blue player does not have pluses in either of 6 or 8. Right? Both sides are trying to create more combo potential than the other. One other interesting thing about this is I think styles of play often kind of breed on themselves, right? Because the blue player went in 5, the red player could play on the diagonal from 5, setting up a lot of synergies. If the blue player was the face player and played somewhere like here, suddenly playing on the diagonal is higher cost because it gives 2 away freely. But also, it tends not to line up quite so well when you don't control the corner, when you're playing the not sure how to say this well. But it is to say, the face player games against another face player, it will feel comfortable and safe for both of them. The combo player sees, you made your combo move, well, I'm going to make my combo move too, right? We're both going to be setting up synergy, and because we're playing on diagonals, more diagonals open up, rather than sort of parts of the board getting cards all locked in, where you can't play diagonally to cards that have already been locked in, right? We're not seeing cards locked in near as quickly or potentially locked in, right? A position like, say, and this is a reasonable move, say you played here. There's not diagonals to play on anymore, right? you can take, while setting up a threat in 5, there is a plus threatened in 5, but it's only one thing at a time. You're setting up one square, and they have time to block that square. And so we see here, when the combo player plays this move, because they're playing on diagonals, because it's not cards all blocked together, that gives the potential to respond with more combo play. And I think one interesting thing here is the face player against the face player leads to types of games they are both comfortable with. The combo player against the combo player is likely to lead to types of games they are both comfortable with as well, because the face players will both kind of have this tacit agreement. We're only playing things with a few things out facing. We are interacting in relatively minimal ways. And the combo players are both, they're not locking in cards, or at least not yet. They are playing diagonally, which opens up more diagonals for future action. And I think that's an interesting effect, and I wonder if people have noticed effects like that in their games. I'm not sure it would apply to all styles, but as I made very clear, I hope, in the last video, like, the face player does not want to go in 5. You can augment it to say, maybe I go in 5 sometimes, but the pure kind of face theory numbers say, you don't really want to be going in 5 ever. And the combo focus player is looking for opportunities to go in 5 because you got to put down the card that the most squares interact with, and you want to control, you want to have more control of all the interactions. And the face player says, that's too many interactions. I want to minimize the ways you can interact with my cards and maximize the ways we can interact with your cards. And the combo player says, I want to maximize how favorable the interactions are, so I'm going to play on these diagonals, setting up tons of combo potential. And this is, this is unlike face theory, which, well, its conclusions maybe have been covered a lot. It's sort of mathematical core I invented recently, and may or may not have much sense to it. I think this kind of combo focus play has been around a long time. There's an interview, and it's been around much longer than this, but D, or Diaconentite, but usually known as D, and occasionally as Go-Go early on, starts playing tournaments in kind of 2005-6, goes away for a bit, and comes back for the kind of 2009 or 10 to 12 period, 2010 to 2012, somewhere around there. And after he was really good in 05-06, and he comes back, and in 2010, I think he wins Triad Wars, and is a tournament winner and a very good player. And he does an interview with Vid after the tournament, where he basically describes what he does is, I set up maximum combo synergies, and then they pay off. And I think this is a highly variable style, right? It is a style where sometimes the combos won't pay off. They can just be blocked. Sometimes you didn't calculate it well enough. It has more inherent risk. But also, D has I think the clear best, the Great Sephiroth is a good record there too, but I think the best record against Yojimbo of anyone ever, right? Which is an unbelievable achievement. And he also just has a really good win percentage against, like, tournament winners in general. But for a tournament winner, a terrible win percentage against non-tournament winners. Which is to say, no matter how good you are, he's around 60% against you. Okay, if you're great, he's maybe 55%. If you're not very good, he's, maybe 65%. But most players, it's a way wider range. And his is, okay, a little wider than that. I'm exaggerating slightly. But, like, you look at most players, and you look at players, like, that I'd rank around where I rank him, and their divide of their performance against different level opponents is way larger than his is. He plays a style that clearly leads to highly variable results. For a more modern player, I think of this style. I think Vialva is an incredibly dangerous player that will also just lose games messily, right? And I think this fits a similar style of a player that sets their cards up, sets up synergies, sets up combo potential, and it's going to be high risk, high reward. and he's going to have some absolutely brilliant games, and some are going to be complete messes. And I think that's something of a cost that comes with the style. And so D in that interview says, I know on my day I can beat anyone. And I believe him. I think on his day he can beat anyone. But I think off his day he can lose to absolutely anyone. And that happens with the combo style. While like a strong face theory player is going to be, I think, significantly more consistent against weaker players, but probably less of a threat to stronger players, right? They're going to be the games are going to be more in control, and even if the stronger player is worse, they might have an easier time navigating to the tie than they will against the highly confusing combo focused player. Which does make you think, right? There could be a player out there that was very understanding of when they were favored and when they were unfavored. So, right, in a matchup where they know they're big favorite, maybe they play a more kind of comfortable staid style. And in a matchup where they know they're underdog, they play the more combative, complex, let's flip a coin and see what happens kind of style. But I also think that would be really hard to do because it's just hard to be that comfortable and good at that many different types of positions. So I don't think I'd actually recommend this to anyone. I think people should generally. I sometimes say in chess that style is a description of the ways you are weak, right? Where the person who says, for instance, I'm a very aggressive player, which you hear from kids a lot, I just want to play attacking chess. It just means they never get good and they give themselves an excuse not to ever get good at any of the other things, right? And they just continue pretending in every position you can attack, and it's not great. Triple Triad is a game where, especially in a position like this opening position, there's so many different approaches you could use, and they're good in different ways. But they're like this is a good move. I'm not sure it's quite as good as some of the face theory moves that we looked at, but it's better than other ones. This is a good move, and I suspect, though I haven't checked with the solver, that this is a good reply. So I think there are very different, very viable approaches, and that's really cool. And I just want to talk about some of them. And I'm curious if you look at this position specifically, like, and we'll do two more after this. Are you drawn to this move? Like, yeah, of course you play the big setup, right? I have this extra plus wall in 8. That's great. 4 and 2 are great for me. My opponent has nothing there. And if like this strikes you as the like, oh yeah, of course that's the reply. That's a really good move too. Then like this style is probably, you're probably looking to play diagonally with combo setups, right? Well, if you're thinking one of these moves, then maybe the face theory video has a little more to say to you. So okay, that's our second style combo. I should probably come up with better names, but because face theory doesn't really tell you much unless you watch 2.5 hours of me babbling. But okay, that's style number 2. We have face theory, which suggested 5 possible moves here. It doesn't really have a way of prioritizing between them too well, but it would say these 4 moves are a little better than this move, but this move is still good. It would say those 5 moves. I think the combo player like this just clearly stands out. Maybe I'm missing some big useful setup some other way, but like I think if you're that style, this move stands out, which is why I've given another move in the variation, because I don't want it to just be like, there's only one move that stands for this. So we also look at the reply and see a second move that might speak to you and might say, yes, that is something I am prone to doing. All right. Third style. Talk to your cards, right? And I've done a video on this, but a third kind of, what do my cards want? Are they happy? Which ones aren't happy? How can I either make them happy or get them out of my hand? So for instance, Tarama is very happy seeing this starter, right? It has 4, it has 2, it's generally facing the action, it's going to have 7s to take, right? If 4, 6, 7, 1 happens to recapture, like Tarama's got action against that. Tarama likes seeing the game upwards, it likes seeing sevens and low side to side numbers, it's seeing everything it wants. That card is happy. Similarly, I think 6713 is pretty happy, right? It sees no numbers it can't take in the opponent's hand. It sees a plus wall in 4. It actually has a capture in 2, which it often wouldn't. These two cards are very happy. And a kind of a talk to your cards player will be like, yeah, those cards are great. I will not be touching those cards, right? They see like a move like here, or a move like here, or another move we'll get to for the next one. And just like, why would you do that? Why would you use cards that are so valuable, like so clearly going to be good on this board? Maybe they think you could use one and keep the other because in some ways they fulfill similar roles, but in some ways they really don't. Like this 7 to the right is a pretty unique power, and there still might be sevens to pick off from other squares. So I think the kind of talk to your cards player, like, no, 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 what are we doing there? There are 3 cards in the hand that we could be considering a starter with. We will not be considering starting with 7444 or 6713. And I think this player would see, okay, all of these cards have captures in 2. And this card is happy that the game is going upwards, right? This card is happy that the game is on the left side of the board, though it's not so happy it's going, up. And this card also is, doesn't want a game where like the top row fills, but other than that is probably doing okay. But this kind of player is definitely looking to start with one of these 3 cards, right? Rather than kind of looking at like a face theory player looks at the board and sees what each card does. And a combo player will like look at the board and see what each card sets up. And this kind of player will like sort of look at the cards in a way. You're still, of course, looking at the board, but you're not like looking at what things set up as your first instinct. You're looking like, what do I want to keep in my hand? And what would I rather is just not in my hand? Like, and so maybe this player plays this, right? But this player doesn't play this because this is a card that strikes them as important to keep around, and this card seems less important to keep around. Did I have an intended starter for this type of player? I thought I had come up with a move that I thought really fit this player, but now I am blanking on it. Ooh, I really should have taken notes that was like different than the moves I had from previous. I thought there was thought I checked something. Oh, maybe I'm blanking. Or maybe I didn't. So I think this player might easily end up with a move like this, right? They might say, okay, this card's not so great versus their starter, and if I put it down, I won't mind that I lost down power because the game's up facing, right? So I'm happy to use this card, right? If I was going to use this card, I'd probably say, okay, I don't want the game to be left, right? Let's make something over here, right? Because I don't want to use this card if I'm then directing the game left, right? Or if you were using this card, you'd be a little less likely to go somewhere high on the board because you'd be like, if I'm going up here, why am I not using this card and keeping a card that is happy that the action is now faced upwards, right? So you might play this over here, you might play this somewhere down here, right? You sort of play cards in the places that that card didn't want to be going because the rest of your hand is the stuff that wants to go there, right? You know, this card wants to go over in the left, right? Or it's powerful going left, I mean. So you wouldn't put it in the left because then you'd want to have it in your hand, right? If you were to make a move in, 7, you'd want to have 3-6-5-6 in your hand because you're going to need that power going left. And so you sort of moves that might jump out. Maybe this jumps out. Maybe this. Maybe this. Which end up being moves that all moves that the face theory player considered. But it's going to be what can I use that leaves the rest of my cards happy, right? And if we play something like this, we can go, okay, this card's still very happy. It has lots of squares. This card now has lots of squares, you know. This card wants the game to be upwards. It wants up left. You know, it definitely wants to be going left, but it wants to go upwards. And this card, this card's probably a little unhappy after this move. So maybe there's a move you could find where the cards are more consistently happy. But I hope the main gist of this is like makes sense. Of I see some of my cards already play great. I am not using those cards early, right? Those are my cards I am holding on to. Those cards are already good. How can I find a use for the cards that aren't good right now? And so, yeah, I think a very logical move for this, and this player would agree with the face theory player, is something like this, saying, if I play in 3, the game's going to be upwards. This will be the worst card in my hand. So using it to go in 3 and do something there, and a card I wasn't too tied to, it wasn't one of the 2 cards I thought was really good here, is a nice way to use this card, and most of my hand is happy, and I'm really looking to use the 3-6-5-6 next. So actually, in that face theory game, this player very much agrees with how that game was played out, because they're looking to get rid of this 3-6-5-6 now. They'd also be looking to get rid of the 7-2-5-5, so they might consider something like this. They might think, hey, this card actually only has 1 capture on board now, or 2 squares it has captures. The 3-6-5-6, this square is a little harder for us to capture. Many things can do this square. Maybe I want to get this card out of my hand. It's not safe, and this card is safe, but it's not a card I really want in my hand anymore. I just don't think this is going to hit very well. If it doesn't land in 6, I don't see where it's going to land usefully, right? 2, it probably will need to recapture 3. It doesn't have that. It's 6 or it's dead, so I have to give it 6 and see what the rest of my cards can do after. So this one might be kind of similar to face theory, or it might end up in a similar place, but I think it's probably just this example. And it, in fact, could end up in quite different places if, for instance, you had a card with, 3 cards for 1 corner, right? Or 4 cards for 1 corner. Chucking one of them in the opposite corner that they're all facing is a very appealing move for the talk to your cards player, right? They say, hey, I have 3 cards that want to go up left. I can make the game up left and give a target they can all take. That's what I want to do here. While the face theory player says, why would I want to play a weak corner? Weak corners don't challenge my opponents at all. So I think that kind of example is where you'd see a bigger difference in the 2 styles, and the difference would be pretty clear, right? The face theory player is saying, what can I do on the board? And the talk to your cards player is saying, which of my cards are doing something on the board? Let's find something for my other cards to do that keeps all my cards happy. So I think that's a third potential style, and one I quite like. I like all of these. I enjoy watching play of all of these. And I want to talk about a fourth one, and I have the hardest time defining this one, but maybe this is a good position to do so. There's a sort of, I want to set up my cards. And depending on what you do, I might have to interact with yours. But what I'm really interested in doing is, especially in a position like this, where I can already take your starter both ways, I do not have to interact with your starter. So I want to just make a move that sort of creates the most stuff on board for me without doing stuff for you. And maybe this leads you to this move, right? To a center move with combo synergy. But another move I wanted to identify, I think it can lead you towards, is something like this, which says, hey, my 7-2-5-5 would love to see 7s to the right. There's only one way for me to do that. My 7-2-5-5 now has just this wonderful square in 9, right? And 9 is dead for you. I can recapture this as needed. I'm not giving up 7. I have 7 under control, hopefully with 3-4-7-5. But I've just created a square that's great for me. You played in a corner, but you didn't pose any problems for me. So there's no reason I have to interact. And I'm just going to find a square on the board where I can set up some synergies for me, some cards that play nicely together that have just nothing to do with what you're doing. Other kinds of moves, like a move like this, pretend if, I mean, the opponent has the plus wall in 9, but if they didn't, something like this, or if they didn't have, ways to take in 3, stuff like this where we have the recapture and let's pretend they don't, um, this kind of move might jump out because I really don't have to touch your starter. I have your starter handled. You have no threat to go next to it in either square because I'll just take from the other square and lock it in. So what I want to do is I want to just, you can't play near your starter, so the rest of the game's gonna, because I would lock it in. I can't play near your starter because you would lock it in. So that whole part of the board is just not where the action's going to be for a bit, and I just want to set up so that the next part of the board where there is action favors me. And I think the kind of natural move to do this is 6-7-1-3 in 8, just kind of giving a little nice play for our cards and making it not obvious how, if 9 is the last square, red's not going to take very much on their final turn. So just making some dead squares for the opponent, making some squares for us. We don't have to set up big combos or anything. We're just sort of saying, okay, did I need to play in the part of the board where the action happened? No? Okay, then I'm just going to maximize somewhere else for just my cards play in a kind of neat way together. And I think this is harder to assign sort of rules to, possibly because I haven't thought it out much, possibly because it's not how I particularly play. But I actually think this move in 8 is a really good one. I did do a quick solver check of this one, and I think it said 20 moves lose against it, something like that. So, like, very much on tier with other moves we've looked at. Um, but clearly one a bit more off the beaten path for me. Maybe not for you. Maybe this is the kind of move that stands out to you, and I'd love to hear people kind of better talk about what makes the style. And I think the player that plays this, like, if the opponent's starter, required a setup against it, they'd play that setup, right? But in a position where they don't have to engage with the opponent's card, they just find something useful to do elsewhere on the board, right? Do I need to interact here? No? Then let's make something else appealing, right? Let's set up my cards to have nice little synergies somewhere else on the board. And where the combo player is going to look to play like diagonally to the action, to really set up on the cards in action, this player is going to much more often look to just play in the distance and play some move that, like, we're not trying to be safe or anything, but we're just trying to set up more for us in that region of the board than they are. I think this is a player that cares more about kind of regions of the board and space on the board. I remember there was an old Occult fan article with someone talking. No, it was I don't know if it was an Occult fan. It was somewhere Jedat was talking about how he sort of saw cards as controlling like space on the board. Like, I have this card controls that area, so you probably can't do anything useful there, and I have this card that controls that area. But I don't control this area yet, so I'm going to make this move over here, and then I think I control it well. And I think it's a little more like that. And fittingly, Jedat was someone who played a lot of side starters, and not your conventional side starters where, like, there's the max number facing towards 5, like a 7, an 8, or a 10, depending on the level, or a 9 if it's level 8. Not that kind of side starters, but just like, hey, I play off this card nicely. Now I think I have nice play in this area of the board. I think Jedat might be the poster child for this kind of move. I think it's a very interesting one. It's never a style that has been mine, but it is fun to watch, and it would be fun for me to figure out if anyone has any kind of thoughts on it to help me better elaborate my thinking here. So I did actually remember all 4 styles I meant to talk about, where there's face theory, which I've already talked about far too much. There's talk to your cards, which has some in common with face theory. And so those are fittingly the 2 ones that tend to click best with me. There's combo focus play, which I think has a lot of upside and comes with more risk, as, aggressive combative styles are wont to do. And then we have this one, which I don't really know how to talk about as well, but a sort of making the board fit your cards a little better. right? Saying, what are the needs here? Do I need to do anything about your move in one? No. So what do I want to do? I want to make the board fit my cards a little better. And so I think, yeah, it's just it's a different approach. And again, I think this move's really good here. I think this move is no sort of worse than other moves we've looked at. I think we've looked at a lot of good responses to this starter, right? This is a, you know, it's not that it's a bad starter, it's a bad hand, and thus we have lots of tools against it, which lets us use it as a nice example to talk about lots of different ways of approaching it. But all of these moves have their purposes and have some nice play. I'm really curious if you think so. What are the starters we've talked about? We've talked about here, talked about here, talked about here, here, here. We sort of all agreed this was a bit worse. I'm curious if you think like one of these is definitely better than the others. Because the solver says all of them give the opponent about the same number of moves that tie them lose. But that doesn't mean those are equally easy to find, right? If you go here or something and four moves tie, but all four of them are here, or like eight moves tie, but it's any cards in these two squares, no one's reliably finding moves in these squares or here, right? So it could be that a lot of moves tie, but they're impossible to find. And it could be that like after this move, one move ties, but it's like, or two moves tie, but it's the like most obvious moves you'd ever consider making, right? So I can say from a very quick check, all of these moves quickly scan as all good moves of fairly similar value. But you could easily make a case that any of them is better than the others based on having analyzed more deeply. It's something that, you can eventually figure out with the solver, but it's going to take time. And I would be really curious if anyone thinks there is a there these are all good moves. These all will put pressure on the first turn player, but there is an answer or a couple answers of a couple moves here that are better than any of the others. I'd also be very curious if you think there's a really good move we haven't looked at with these four approaches. I want to throw out quickly a fifth potential approach, which Turds has mentioned as a possible follow up to my Talk to Your Cards video of talk to your opponent's cards, right? What do your opponent's cards want to see? 4, 6, 7, 1. Would love to see a 6 to the left and 3. Would love to see 7s facing up in the middle row. And would love to see the game down right. 6, 6, 3, 3 wants to see the game upright. 5, 3, 5, 5, I guess, wants to see the game anywhere but to the right, but it's also a fairly weak card that really just wants to not play. And 4, 4, 6, 5 wants to see the game down left, but as we've seen with some of its same plus synergy, it's a balanced enough card and not actually that strong in the directions it's strong that it might not have that much opinion either. Which means the other person's hand maybe just doesn't want the game going left. There are two cards that are better going left than right, but they are much weaker than the two cards better going right than left. So maybe there's an answer here that's placed somewhere on the left. Now, there's not an obvious way to do it, right? 6, 7, 1, 3 is not recapturable here, and the 7's up, we don't have 4 and they do, which is pretty uncomfortable. If you want the game going left, you really do want 3, 6, 5, 6 in your hand. And this looks like a very weird move to make to me, but maybe it makes some sense. Maybe it says your cards that are actually powerful are going to be bad now, right? Your 4, 6, 7, 1 and your 6, 6, 3, 3 are going to be dead in 8. They're going to have real trouble going left and capturing anything. So you're going to either have to use up the more powerful cards in your hand early, or I'm going to make sure they're dead. And maybe this is a good move, right? It doesn't seem to me there's a super obvious reply. If the opponent blocks the in-between square of 4, we have lots of L's we can set up in 2. Many of them look pretty good. I kind of like the idea of 6, 7, 1, 3 landing in 2. Again, we have 3 and they don't, which is really nice. And we could also set up L's from 8, but I think 2 is easier to set up an L in just because the one's facing out. And if they don't set up an L, then maybe we just play 6, 7, 1, 3, and 4, and again say, you don't want to be going left, dude. You can't take this. So maybe this is a good starter, and this is not something I'd have considered. But by running through a different thought process, the more I look at it, the more I think this is pretty decent too. And one that, like, face theory would go, why are you playing a card they can take both ways when you could create a challenge for them? The combo player is going, what does this set up? I don't see the point. The the talk to your cards player is saying, I don't want to go down left. Why did I just make 6, 7, 1, 3 so much worse? This is not. Maybe I'm not super upset about this because I can see some ways. My 7, 2, 5, 5 is a little happier. My 3, 6, 5, 6 is a little happier. So maybe the talk to your cards player says, okay, I see what you're doing. Probably not what I would have done, but I see you out there. And then finally, we have the sort of, I'll just call it the Jedat player, the more creative, I'm gonna set stuff up for me and not for you. But I think even that player would like to have a little more synergy. This is just a very unsynergistic move. But I think one that has real sense to it. I'm curious. I'm going to pop open the solver for a sec. If this is a similar strength move as the others, my guess is the solver is going to say a little weaker. But I'm curious because, like, I look at it and this move looks good to me. Very similar. 19 losses, 9 ties. So, like, just to go through some moves, like, this one gave them 7. There are 7 moves that tie. This one I think was, or no, sorry, this one was 6. This was 8. This was 7. This was 8, I think, somewhere around there. This was 14. This is 8. This was 9 or 10, something like that. Right? All in a close enough range out of 28 moves that aside that I'm pretty sure this move is clearly weaker than the others, at least from a quick solver check, hard to differentiate between them. But that's really cool. This is just as good a move as the others, or very close to as good a move. And again, maybe it's something that fits how you'd think about the position, but it's not something that fits how I'd think about the position. And so it is not a move I would consider or find, especially when there are a bunch of other appealing options. So I guess where I want to end this is by saying, if a style speaks to you, if one of these 5 or something else, I was sort of arguing for this in the last video, it might be worth figuring out a kind of priority list of against common starter types, like a corner you can take both ways or a corner you can only take one way, or a safe corner, figuring out how do I want to reply, right? What do I think is the best type of reply? So I should know I have to check for that first. And so you can make your thinking a little more structured and make sure you spot the things you want to be spotting more reliably. But another thing you could do is if you think one of these 5 notions, again, face theory, it's not so obvious what it means from the name, but there's hours of video on it. Face theory, talk to your cards, talk to your opponent's cards, combo play, or Jedat. Whichever one of those kind of strikes you as, I think this is strong, and it's not something I'm seeing, it could just be something to keep in mind. Like, is it that hard if you're playing a 5-minute game to spend a minute going like, hey, let's just spend a minute talking to my opponent's cards and see if that pops out moves you would not otherwise have considered? Because there is a sense in which whatever style you have is weakness. It's you find moves of some type, but you do not find moves of other types that will sometimes be better. And by incorporating thinking around the other moves and learning to value and find those other moves, you can address it, right? We can get stronger at this game not because we're suddenly a much better calculator, but because everyone has like certain types of moves they see well and certain types of moves they don't. And when the positions come along that are the types of moves we see well, we do well. And when the positions come along that are the types of moves we don't see well, we don't do well. But is the more you can cover kind of, okay, hey, my normal ideas don't look good here, but I just got better at finding, 3, 4, 7, 5, and 7, a type of move that I don't naturally see, but maybe you start seeing that kind of move, then in a position where that is the move you need to find, you suddenly have much better chance to find it. So this has sort of been the gist of my recent kind of triple triad thinking is if I want to become a better player, I need to expand the types of moves I'm capable of finding. But I need to have a pruning method, right? It can't be that I'm trying to look at every move. There isn't sufficient time. And it can't be that, like, the moves, my instincts tell me are terrible. I suddenly go, like, all moves I think are terrible are actually, like, okay, right? That doesn't work. Instead, you need to see something that, oh, hey, I got how that idea worked. It's not something I would have looked at, but it made sense to me. I can start looking for that, right? It's not that you're told, like, hey, you should play more opposite corners. Because if opposite corners, or, whatever type of move, you should play more adjacent corners. I should not play more adjacent corners. I play enough adjacent corners. Uh, but, like, let's say someone was told, let's say you were told you should play more adjacent corners. You've basically never played them, and you've missed some important opportunities or some important defenses by undervaluing adjacent corners. You still, when you look at adjacent corners, if you think they tend to look weak, you're still not going to be playing them, right? Like, it still looks like a poor move to you. But what could change how you play is you see some adjacent corners played by someone else, and it makes sense to you, right? They win strong games that feel logical and compelling to you, and you start to be able to see where the benefit in that move type is. And it really helps not just if you see a sick move, but like you see a move and you're like, "Oh, I get it. That makes sense to me." And one of the best ways for that to happen is if you can kind of figure out the thinking behind it. And so what I'm trying to do here with these theories are kind of for my own fulfillment, my own like enjoyment in the game is can I come up with structures of thinking that broaden my horizons? And I think face theory is fairly similar to ways I already think. I think it's an interesting approach to formalizing it. Um, but I think face theory tends to land you pretty close to how I usually play. Like, obviously, I think I play better than it leads you to play. But, like, I think that one I think is quite interesting. And I liked trying to figure out how the math would work on it. But it's not taking me new places. It might take other people new places, right? We all do different things. And talk to your cards is something I also do pretty regularly. Not always explicitly, but like when I'm in a position like this where I can approach from different angles, like I really do feel like these two cards are already doing great, and I should be looking for stuff to do with the other cards. So, as I recall when I was watching this game, I thought this should be played, but this move also makes a bunch of sense to me, right? And when Delhi played this, which is just as good a move as those two, it felt a little weird to me because I was like, why would I use that card? And that's because Delhi's setting up this card to be better than it was, right? While my move, it gets out the weaker card, but this card doesn't have this square. Of course, it does have this square, which this card wouldn't. Um, so, like, it's not that his move was any worse, but because I am a somewhat talk to your own cards player, it struck me as like, why would you put that card there when you could have put the other card there? It just felt to me like the other card was slightly better. And of course, it must have felt to him like this card was slightly better, right? And I think, in fact, they're basically the same. You can go either way, it's totally fine. But that was an indication that I am a talk to your cards style player, right? The card I wanted to put there is the card that when I talked to was unhappier. And then there's combo style play, which we all are going to play sometimes. I notice when I'm watching other people play, I am much more prone to strongly consider that kind of move. And that's for two reasons. One is, as they say in chess, it's much easier to sacrifice someone else's pieces, right? In my own games, I am going to minimize risk, and in someone else's games, I'm going to look at the fun stuff because there's no cost to me, there's no risk, I'm not making the moves. But the second thing, and we talked about this earlier, is right when this move is played, it becomes more likely like that a move like this will be played. And so because I am playing a more staid, controlled style, it is less likely that these moves will occur. And when I watch other people play because they have a style less like that, the frequency these moves occurs goes up. Because of how I play the early game, the chance of this happening around move 3 or 4 is lower in my games than it is in other people's games, which I think is a really interesting effect of kind of style breeds on itself. The more you play a type of move, the more you are likely to successfully play it again as the game goes on. The more likely it is that there are more moves of that type. And I don't think I've ever talked about that before, and I'm not sure I've said it before, but it's a very curious effect. Um, so combo style, like I think I get how it works. And I have specific reasons I tend not to play it much, but it's a fun style, and I really enjoy players that do play it. Um, so again, that's not one that is broadening my horizons, but it's a very important one, and it's maybe one I should think about more. It really doesn't come up in my games that much. My early play just doesn't lead to games that look like this very often. And I think that would be too big a change, and it would also be a kind of waste of a place to work for me. And I'm using me as an example because it's the one I have. I'm not saying this applies to anyone else, and I'm not saying it's particularly interesting what's useful for me, but just I'm trying to give a way to think about what applies to you. And for me, I don't reach positions like this much. So getting better at handling positions like this doesn't make a ton of sense to me, right? Um, there are types of positions I get a lot more that I also don't handle as well as I'd like to, and those are the positions I want to be getting better at. This kind of position doesn't come up that much for me, and so I don't need to gain expertise in it. Is my version of this. What else do we got? What else do we got? The creative play, really interesting to me. Lots of moves I don't find. Something that comes to mind is a game Seto beat me in Clan Wars recently, where he started in 9, I took from 8, he played in 2, and I just couldn't get anything to click, right? I couldn't get anything in the top of the board to click, I couldn't get anything at the bottom of the board to click. All the squares felt under control for him and like he had good reactions, and I just couldn't find anything, and it thoroughly discombobulated me, and he destroyed me. I think it was a great game by him, and also one that really showed a place I have problems. And I think it was a sort of Jedat style move in that sense. Though obviously Seto is even better than Jedat was. Um, so you might say I should name it after Seto, but Jedat says it to me. And so like that kind of game is a really fascinating game to me in that direction. And you could go check it out if you wanted to see me totally confused and unable to figure things out. And then there's talk to the opponent's cards. And I think a lot of people play weak corners I don't understand, but maybe this is a weak corner. It doesn't feel that intuitive to me, right? Talk to my cards doesn't quite click, and face theory it doesn't click at all. Um, Combo stuff, as I said, I don't do a lot of that, but I do sometimes. Everyone does. And this obviously doesn't make sense from that basis. And it doesn't obviously make sense from the kind of creative basis. I'm not constructing any synergies. There's not, oh, if you play there, I have the setup against it. It's not really related to synergy here. I think it's a hard move to get to, but as we saw with the solver and just from looking at it a bit, I think it's a very good move. Uh, you know, there are a lot of very good moves available, but I think this is firmly among them, and it's not a move I'd consider. So maybe my takeaway from this should be, hey, there's a strong move that I would not find, and there's a way of thinking that led me there pretty quickly. I should focus on spending some time on that type of thinking so that I can start finding moves like this. Because surely there are positions where my natural instincts won't find good moves, and this kind of move might exist in those positions and would give me a way to still make a good move, even though my normal inclinations don't apply. And that's really what I'm trying to go for here, and why I think it is useful to lay out kind of theories of style rather than just kind of aggressive defensive, which I've done in the past. But stuff like that doesn't give you a tool to try to figure new things out. And so I think if there was a move here, and it could have been, this, right? It could have been what Deli played, right? If it could have been this. If there's a move here that struck you, and I probably should have stopped at the start of the video and said, hey, look at this opening position. Maybe I'll leave like a comment or something. But look at this opening position and take a few minutes to think what you'd play before starting the video. Maybe that would have been a good way to approach it. And actually, what I might do, what I'll do is I'll take a screenshot of this position and just ask what people would play here, because I'm curious what the answer is. There's many good moves, but also because then, if you thought there, obviously this is the correct move in this position, or obviously this is the correct move. Hopefully at this point you think, oh hey, there were a bunch of good options, and maybe you thought like this was the obvious move, right? Or this, moves that are more obscure to me. But there's clearly a bunch of good options, and if there's one that's not just like not to your taste, but like, oh, that looks good, and I would not have thought of it, then hopefully I've given a way to think that might lead you there and might be worth practicing executing that kind of thought. And particularly, I would guess, in positions where there's not a move that already jumps out at you, right? This position, there's tons of stuff that might jump out at you, but there might be a similar looking position where the type of move you like to play, there's nothing that appeals. I love capturing starters, corners. I don't like the look of any of the captures here. And if I had no other move types I liked, I would flounder in this position. Because I wouldn't, I think there are decent captures here, and we have looked at one of them, which we got to with face theory. But to my taste, nothing jumps out of those moves. And so if that was all I looked for, I would need to branch out a little, right? I would need a second tool in my kit, something else to look for. And hopefully we provided some. I'm really happy with this discussion and video. Um, my sort of theoretical meandering videos tend not to get much interaction or viewership, which is fine. But I think this is interesting stuff and could be useful. And it is a usefulness that isn't dependent on like, hey, you just have to calculate better. Because all of us could improve if our calculation was faster and more consistent and longer and deeper, right? We all could be better in that way. But it's not the only way to improve, and it's far from the only way to improve. And I think, yeah, I hope there's tools here for someone. Looking at you, turds. I'm not. I don't know that any of these would be all that helpful to him, but he's the one with the best chance to have heard me say this at 59 minutes in.